Gentlemen and female gentlemen, we are back with Dungeons & Dragons lore. I am absorbing all lore through all of the universes of all of fiction. That's what we're doing here. Currently, we're doing a Dungeons & Dragons deep dive, and we're looking into the Illithids, or the Mind Flayers. I'm very excited. Apparently, they live in some space alternate dimension than the normal setting of D&D. I don't know, but I am excited to find out. So far, on the tier list, we have S-tier creatures, or mimics, and B-tier copper dragons. We are going to be including all creatures that we do the lore of into the giant tier list of D&D creatures. So subscribe, I'll see you in the next one, and let me know stuff you want me to cover coming forward. Let's see what we got.
What do you think you know about Mind Flayers?
I just know they're tentacle things that flay minds. That's basically it, honestly.
And at this point, I'm not even talking about what your character would know, but you as a player. What do you truly know about these creatures?
Creepy?
You will be surprised to know, not really much. And
from what I understand, they're like not super strong necessarily, like physically, but they can like control your mind and shit. Dude, I remember I read the Drix novels years ago. I'm pretty sure, Drizzt, not Drix. Drizzt. Didn't Drizzt fight a couple of these Mind Flayers? They like controlled him. They managed to, I don't know, man. I don't know how they sneeze either. There's so many questions.
Things that you do know will turn out to be either false or vastly misrepresented.
Alright.
Let's start with the fact that Mind Flayers are quite obviously
Baldur's Gate. Maybe we'll play Baldur's Gate as we go through the lore.
not even their true name.
Oh shit. Wait, so are they not naturally from the same world? Like, so they lived in the Underdark, right? They lived in the Underdark. Weird. But do they also live in another world? Like,
let's start with what would an average adventurer know about these creatures? Well, you might know that a Mind Flayer is a brain-eating monster that hides in the Underdark.
yeah, that sounds about right.
might know-
Underdark is basically just, there's an underground civilization, right?
Know that they have octopus-like heads that they use to grapple onto opponents.
Don't they also mind control people? I don't think, they don't just eat brains. Like, I think they mind control people too. Like, they will make you like a lobotomized slave until they slowly eat you from within or some shit.
Using said tentacles to stun said opponents, so that then they can use their circular shark-like teeth to eat their brains out.
Oh, I didn't know they had those. Okay.
You might know that they are coated in nasty mucus which sticks to the skin and makes it very difficult to escape their grasp. And lastly, you might know that they enjoy psychic magic, which they use to obliterate their opponent's brains. Hell, you might even believe that they are good spellcasters, since they will throw in a few spells here and there in combat. What you might be surprised about is that most of those—
They have like a society? I thought they just kind of wandered around. Alright, that's why we're doing the lore dives.
Things are not actually completely true. But let's start from the beginning. Mind Flayers were not actually bound to the Underdark forever.
There are creatures known as aboliths who have perfect memory that spans the time even before the gods, and they have no recollection of Mind Flayers. That is great! I love my chat dropping random lore. This led people to believe they're from the future. Oh my god! That's really cool.
In fact, they actually come from the very skies. You see, Mind Flayers used to dominate the inner planes, those being the elemental ones like the plane of fire, the plane of water, or the plane of ash, etc. Essentially everything in between the prime material world and the extraplanar realities like Limbo, or Mount Olympus, or Mechanus, etc.
Wait, so there is like a I guess most D&D takes place here, but there's also like the Shadowland or the Feywild, which is the fairy world, which I remember from Vox Machina. I watched Vox Machina. So, you know, they ended up traveling to the Feywilds and shit. So there's that. And then around them, the Forgotten Realms. That's why it's called the Forgotten Realms, because it takes place mostly on the planet, but it's surrounded by realms. These are different dimensions and worlds that intersect. I love my lore series, man. That's why I kept this channel. The entire Nux Taku channel is purely kept because I just love the lore shit. It really is.
Classify as the outer planes. The Mind Flayers were able to accomplish all of this thanks to their superiority in traversing the astral plane, which they also—
The Shadowfell and the Feywild are mirror realms of ours. The outer realms are the realms beyond ours. All right, we'll keep diving. We're gonna keep diving.
So ruled completely. During this rule, the Mind Flayers explored world after world, consuming everything in their path.
Oh my god!
Becoming more—
Wait, they're conquerors!
knowledgeable after every single brain they would consume. This lasted until a massive slave revolt occurred. The Gith, who were the main slave force of the Mind Flayers, somehow managed to break free from their grasp and started a slow but surefire process of killing every single Mind Flayer in existence. Now, it is not particularly known how they obtained this freedom or what method they used to finally obtain the upper hand against the Mind Flayers.
I mean, but I guess these Gith guys, they could beat them in like physical combat. It's just the psychic magic. So once they break out, if they get up to them, they could beat the shit out of them probably.
What it is known, however, is that the vast empire that the Mind Flayers left behind is completely gone.
Damn.
Looking around in
so they were actually interdimensional and interplanetary conquering colonial force, taking over galaxies and shit. And they were wiped out by a slaver revolt.
The Astral Sea or in any of these previously inhabited worlds would yield no find of the Mind Flayer's presence. The story that is told to us by sages is that the Gith retributed with such ferocity that they went through the process of destroying every single fortification that the Mind Flayers possessed in order to completely wipe them out. Complete genocide was their intent, and they almost succeeded. The Mind Flayers ran and hid in the prime material world, making their last bases deep within the Underdark, where they could not be found. And that is why you find them.
That's why they're in the Underdark. Oh my god. Really, they're alternate realities. They're alternate realities and other worlds. They were conquering galaxies, but because of this revolt, they are in the Underdark to hide from the Gith. That's so sick! So that's not their natural habitat. That's just the last remaining enclave of those guys.
There, hiding and plotting in the dark. So they were not originally from the Underdark, but what else is believed about them that is false? Well, to start, their tentacles are not actually used to funnel their psychic energies into their enemies in order for them to eat brains with their mouth. In fact, they actually eat brains with the tentacles themselves.
Oh!
You see, inside of their tentacles lies a duct that has the ability to project an enzyme that corrodes both flesh and bone. Once a Mind Flayer gets a hold of your head with their tentacles, they dissolve your cranium with this enzyme, leaving your brain exposed.
And again, that's not part of their fighting ability, that's just how they eat, that's how they live.
It is then, with those very tentacles, that they absorb your brain into these ducts. Just how your nose is actually connected to your mouth. Like such are these tentacles connected into the mouth.
Interesting.
So you see, those shark-like teeth are not actually used
So they're not really tentacles, they're just like very long lips or some shit.
Open up a hole in your head, but to simply chew the brain matter and consume it after the tentacles do their job. The mucus layer that they possess in their body also has a very sinister ability that you might not know about. First is the very common biological need to keep their bodies moisturized. The mucus actually prevents oxygen from entering their skin, but most importantly, this slime further exacerbates the psychic powers from the Mind Flayers. How they do this, we do not know. However, a lot of experiments have been done to prove this. When a Mind Flayer is cleaned off of this mucus, they find their psychic abilities harder to produce.
I guess they use it almost as, like, you know, this is just what I'm imagining. You know how, like, when an ultrasound is done, they put that goop on you, and then the ultrasound machine an ultrasound works through vibrations. So essentially, it's much easier to detect vibrations when it sends those ultrasonic waves through the goop. The goop is just kind of the way it funnels the actual waves in to, you know, sense shit better. So I guess that's what the goop around them is like. That's kind of crazy how deep they go into the lore and all these individual creatures.
Their ability to shift into other planes of existence. So in some way, this liquid enhances their powers. After much experimentation, however, adventurers and sages have failed in using this mucus for their own purposes.
Alright.
Thanks to this experimentation, however, they have also concluded that this mucus has stupendous magic resistance, which explains why Mind Flayers are so adept at evading and resisting magical attacks. Lastly, but not least, let's talk about their actual psychic abilities. The first thing that you need to understand is that this is not magic. There's nothing magical about the abilities that the Mind Flayers produce. In fact, we call it psionics. Now,
Interesting. So magic is something that only exists in our plane. Psionics are like where it comes from. We call it magic because we don't understand what it is. But in actuality, it operates on a completely different wavelength, right? And magic, from what I understand in D&D lore, magic, it absorbs stuff from like deities or higher beings, and you are able to funnel that through yourself. Psionics are pure psychic ability, not necessarily connected to some deity. It's just purely their shit. Interesting.
Psionics in Dungeons & Dragons are essentially abilities that are unlocked and used solely with brain power. The easiest way to understand it is with the example of telepathy. The idea that without using magic, one could telepathically converse with another being by sheer force of concentration and practice.
So it's just like it unlocks 1,000,000% of its brain or some shit. It's not actually magic. It is how its brain operates on a much more deep level. Damn, that's really cool. I actually love that. That's such a cool twist, that it's not just random gimmick magic.
Yeah, that you have trained your brain to such extents that you can move things with it, create things with it,
not exactly,
even kill with it. I want to stress it again, that what makes it so unique and so special is that it has no connection to magic. Psionics could be used even while inside of an anti-magical shell, which also means that you cannot counterspell it. And the range of things that they can accomplish with psionics is actually quite impressive. From turning into stone...
It doesn't come from the weave, it comes from themselves. Dude, that's terrifying, honestly.
To scrying, to telekinesis, to even levitating. Monks, for example, develop their ability to utilize ki, which could be considered a style of psionics. Essentially using their concentration and practice to allow themselves to move faster than normal, resist damage, and even produce the effects of certain spells. So in essence...
So, when they cast spells the way we see spells, they're not actually spells. They're reproductions of spells through their psionics. I absolutely love the detail of this shit, man.
This is what a Mind Flayer is. A psionic-wielding, brain-eating monster that is painfully close to going extinct. And because of that, they will fight to the death to protect its enclave. But now that we have dealt with the mere basics, let's go a little bit further. Why do they eat brains? You would think this question could be answered easily, but it is a tad bit more complicated.
I mean, I was just thinking like, mind flayers, they flay minds, but yeah, no, I mean, why do they need to do that? Why does that matter to them?
Seems, yes. They need sustenance to survive, and they obtain this substance by absorbing the gray matter from intelligent creatures. However, this is not the sole reason. Mind Flayers actually obtain the memories of those they eat, memories which they seem to use to scout their surroundings and learn from their environment. This is important because Mind Flayers have an ultimate goal: to conquer the universe once again, like they did in time immemorial. So their constant hunger is fueled by their never-ending need to find as much information as they can in order to exploit it and further expand.
Interesting. So even though they're basically at the brink of extinction, the actual brink of extinction, they still have these lofty goals of conquering and absorbing everything, adding everything to their Mind Flayer hive mind. And they absorb brains because they cannot stop growing and gaining knowledge and understanding of shit. That is how they grow.
That being said, a Mind Flayer colony that has no desire to expand, which is entirely possible, I might add, will still have to consume brains in order to exist. 1 brain a month per Mind Flayer, to be exact. For as long as a Mind Flayer can maintain a diet of an intelligent brain a month, they will grow strong and healthy. However, in times of scarcity, a Mind Flayer can survive up to 3 months without a brain, after which point they will slowly wither and die.
Wow, that's crazy.
A healthy Mind Flayer, however,
they actually need brains to live. I mean, I guess that's partially why they have slave populations. It's just food. Infinite food jutsu.
A typical lifespan of about 120 years. That means at least 120 brains will have to be eaten by a Mind Flayer in its full lifespan, which makes them extremely cancerous to their environments. Sadly, however...
Yeah, you can't exactly hang out with something that's going to try to eat your brain as much as it can.
It doesn't end there. They also need brains for their reproduction. See, I did tell you that it wasn't going to be an easy answer.
Alright.
They need brains for virtually everything. This, though,
Alright.
is where the mind flayers really do get creepy. You see, mind flayers
No, I feel they're already pretty creepy. Not gonna lie, they're already pretty creepy.
have an amphibious
Yeah.
past. You can tell by the way their skin looks, by their mucous membranes, by their octopus-like heads, and by the fact that they have webbed feet, which helps them swim really fast. This also comes into play when you realize that they lay eggs for their reproduction. However,
Alright.
unlike birds and snakes, mind flayers lay thousands of eggs at a time,
Fish
sort of
style.
like a
Like
fish
fish.
do. These eggs are then deposited in a pool full of brine, this specialized liquid
Nice.
made from the remains of other mind flayers. It is
Oh,
pretty
shit.
nasty, but we will talk about this brine further on the next episode. Inside of this brine pool, the eggs will eventually hatch and form tadpoles. These tadpoles will take a full 10 years to mature. That's an extremely long time, especially when you realize that during all of this time, the tadpoles are not really changing into mind flayers. In fact, they stay
What?
in their tadpole shape. All they really do during these 10 years is grow a few inches. However,
it?
after they do, they are considered mature and ready for the real transformation. Now, I would like to point out that even getting to this point is extremely difficult for the tadpoles. For you see, inside
If
of
they're weak as fuck, you could just kill them. Like, you step on it. And probably also still needs to eat a brain a month.
this brine pool, it is essentially every tadpole for itself. They will
Dude, I love that on the one hand, these are, like, unbelievably terrifying, monstrous creatures that could conquer galaxies and control you. But on the other hand, they are pitifully, fragile creatures.
fight between one another for food, and only the strongest will survive. Those that are too weak or end up dying will be consumed by the massive
That's nice.
other inhabitant of the brine pool.
Wait, what?
The elder brain. The
They have a giant brain in a brine pool with all the little tadpoles? Dude!
elder brain is essentially the leader of the mind flayers, but we will also
Oh shit, it's the hive mind. Right, so they have a giant brain in a pool that kind of sends out its telepathic orders to, like, the mind flayer drones, and that is where they grow them. Damn, bro.
have to talk about it during the next episode. Point is, a massacre will occur during this 10 years, and only 1 out of 1,000 tadpoles will actually survive to maturity.
Oh my god,
This-
it's impossible. That's why they're staying at the brink of extinction. They're having a really hard time reproducing.
Assures that
Like, you have to understand, before they started conquering the galaxy and enslaving all these other races, it must have been unfathomable amounts of millennia to build up their population. That's why they're hiding in the Underdark. They'll probably wait 10, 20, 30,000 years until they actually try to do anything.
only the strongest and most determined of the tadpoles will ever make it into becoming a mind flayer. Get ready, for you are about to hear how a mind flayer is actually created.
Alright, I'm ready.
One of the biggest secrets that these colonies hold. You see, for a tadpole to transform, they need a living, intelligent
Oh,
humanoid host.
shit.
A mind flayer typically grabs a slave and inserts the tadpole into their brain,
That's why they have the slaver populations. God damn.
usually via either the ear canal or through the
Oh,
nose.
these guys are yucky.
While inside,
Damn.
the tadpole will consume the host's brain, completely removing any personality, any spirit, and any memories from it. It will then attach itself into the brainstem and control the body, filling the remains of the hollow cranium with space for the tadpole to grow into a full-grown mind flayer brain. Then, very similar actually to blue slats, the body simply starts the
damn.
process of slowly transforming into the body of a mind flayer, turning purple and growing the necessary appendages and so on. In fact, you could even say that they combine the process of both the red and the blue slats in their reproduction,
I don't know what a slat is, but maybe we'll cover that later.
using both tadpoles and straight-up mutations. However, it will then take just about 20 years for this new adult mind flayer to enter its prime, though no difference in physical properties will ever be shown, and no remains from the old body will be seen. Whether the old host was a female or a male, whether it was an orc or a goblin, it will not change how the mind flayer looks, except for height
I see.
and weight. Now, not any intelligent humanoid can
Wait, so could they take over a giant or something? Like, could you have a giant mind flayer?
be used in this transformation. It is believed that halflings, dwarves, dwergars, gnomes, centaurs, giants, and quatuas are immune to this transformation.
All right.
And because of that, they are not used by the mind flayers for this purpose.
Interesting.
However, humans, elves, drow, Gith, Grimlocks, Gnolls, Goblins, and Orcs are acceptable as long as they are at least 5 feet tall and no taller than 6 feet. They must.
Alright, so you got that range. Any species that grows within that range could become a mind flayer.
Also weigh at least 130 pounds and no more than 270. It is believed that if the host
These are
body is either too
amazingly
small
cool.
or too large, then the tadpole will either take too long or finish too quick in the process of eating the brain, which
Finishing quick, relatable.
would result in the tadpole dying.
Damn. After all
guys.
those years of being the fastest swimmer, it just dies because it decides to eat a halfling.
Thank you so much for watching the video, and make sure
That was really cool, man. That was an insanely cool lore dive, I'm not gonna lie. I know that I put Mimics in S tier, but I have to put the Illithid in S tier as well. Yep, sorry, I'm putting them in S tier too. So now we have 2 S tier creatures already. That's insane. Because this is really cool. The rich history, the genocide of these people, they're barely surviving in the Underdark. They have to wait tens of thousands of years to hopefully reproduce. The reproduction system, the reason why they had slaves, so cool, just so cool. S tier creature for sure. Let me know what you want me to do in the next one. I got people suggesting the Farum. I don't know what that is. We'll see, and see you in the next one. Bye. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, fam.